I mean, there's a difference between a wildfire and a house fire and a firestorm. And a firestorm is this kind of all-consuming atmospheric event. And, you know, we've all seen a house burn, unfortunately, and there's a lot of the house left, usually, when there's a house fire. And a lot of the damage is done by the fire department dousing the entire structure with water and destroying everything. And that has to happen. I'm not ragging on firefighters.
Yeah,
you have to
not.
do it. And this was not that. And what a firestorm does is consume everything extraordinarily quickly. And, you know, people were talking to me, we're kind of leaping ahead here, but we have to do this to get to Bobrowskis. When firefighters were telling me, yeah, the houses were burning down in 6 minutes. And my first thought is, you know, dude, you know, this must have been a very frightening moment for you with a lot of adrenaline, and, you know, we lose our sense of time. This is totally understandable. And I asked other firefighters in other parts of the city, and they said 9 minutes. They said 3 minutes. And so I thought, okay, maybe this was really, really fast. And then another fellow said we were actually setting our watches because we couldn't put these fires out. So we would count down 4 houses, 5 minutes apiece, because it took us 20 minutes to set up at a hydrant. So we'd just count 4 down and we'd set up there and try to save the 5th house. So I just never heard of houses. These are 2-story, $500,000 homes built out of these modern materials, a lot of petrochemicals, vinyl windows, tar shingles, vinyl siding, again, in the middle of a very flammable ecosystem. You know, it makes no sense in the larger context. But when you're really focused on this is a man's world and we're here to make money and we're in charge of everything, you can persuade yourself that this makes sense. And so I found a physicist who specialized in home combustion. And I said, how do you explain a 6-minute burn time for an entire house to go from the roof into, you know, smoldering embers in the basement in the time that it takes to smoke a cigarette? And he said, well, the way to understand that, you're going to have to look at the Hamburg firestorm. And the Hamburg firestorm was an intentional conflagration that was set off by hundreds of Allied bombers, British and American bombers, dropping incendiary devices on the city of Hamburg in the summer of 1943 during World War II. And this was payback, basically, for the London Blitz, where the Germans bombed London and did enormous damage. And this was total war, you know, and this was no holds barred. We don't care who we kill, what we destroy. We are burning this place to the ground. And Hamburg was a big industrial center, and they carpet bombed this place for 8 days. And every night sending these sorties of hundreds of heavy bombers with many, many tons of large destructive bombs, followed by little thermite bombs that would just puncture the shingles and land in the upper rooms of homes and start them on fire. And the idea was to generate a firestorm. It was not an incidental byproduct. They had practiced in the desert in Utah using German architects, expatriate architects, building workers' housing of the style they built in Hamburg. And they recreated that in the desert in Utah during, I guess, the spring of 1942, 1943. And they bombed them over and over again to see what they would do until they figured out the right recipe. And then they unleashed that on Hamburg. Unbelievably cynical and premeditated mass arson and murder. And it was, you know, devastatingly effective. But these fires were started intentionally using what passes for the scientific method. And the fire in Fort McMurray that came out of the boreal forest organically created a comparable effect. And that's impressive. It's really impressive. And so this was, a very disciplined, sober physicist's way of saying, this is an extraordinary and rare event that requires very special conditions to reproduce. And we have now done that with climate change. We have done that by heating the atmosphere to the point that it can create heat waves like this, that it can create droughts like this, that it can create the dry conditions and high temperatures that enable fires to burn like premeditated fire bombings from World War II.
For the full episode we got this clip from, click that top video there. For more clips, click that playlist right there. You got time for one more, man. Tell them there's traffic or something. Ooh, tell them there was a bear. I was gonna be like, how big was the bear? It's a good excuse.